Hey, my amazing artists. I thought today we would try some art that I personally have been enjoying these past couple weeks myself. What I have been using is called Shrinky Dinks. Now, this is actually something that back as a child I used to do myself as a craft at home as well. I'm going to show you one, my favorite kind of Shrinky Dink materials I like to use, and then I'm also going to show you two, a way that you can make your own Shrinky Dink materials at home that you would have maybe just lying around your kitchen or even in your recycling bin right now. So let's see what art supplies we might need or what I like to use, and then I'm going to show you what Shrinky Dinks are and how you can make your own. Alright, first thing first, I wanted to show you a couple examples of Shrinky Dinks that I myself have made these last couple of weeks, as well as some months ago. These are all different things that I have made using some simple materials such as plastic, Sharpies, and colored pencils, and that I have turned into things like necklaces, earrings, and even some things that I haven't quite finished yet, such as some more necklaces, and even some cute candy cane earrings that I'm going to make pretty soon. Now, just because I use Shrinky Dinks to make jewelry doesn't mean your Shrinky Dink has to be jewelry. You could also make keychains, you could make ornaments for a tree, you could even make things for mom and dad out of handprints or even pictures of yourself or little notes that you could write on your Shrinky Dinks as little keepsakes to give to your parents on their birthday or Father's or Mother's Day, whenever you'd like. So these are just a few examples of what I like to make. Now I'm going to show you what art supplies you're going to need and what I like to use as well. So here are the materials that I normally like to use when I'm making my own Shrinky Dinks. I buy Shrinky Dink plastic from my local craft store, and I like to use what's called frosted rough and ready. That means that the actual plastic is kind of rough and scratched up, as you can see in there. That helps me to use my colored pencils. I really love my Prismacolor color pencils that I have here to make some really nice bright and blended colors. I'll also use my Sharpie to trace any pictures that I want onto my plastic. Because it's kind of see-through, I can put an image behind it and trace right on the plastic. Then when I'm done, I'll cut it out, and I also hole punch wherever I want to maybe connect it to a necklace or an earring or even add a keychain. I can hole punch close to where the top of my Shrinky Dink would be. Now, let's say you don't have these particular art materials at home, or in this case, this particular type of plastic. What you might have, though, is some sort of container like this, maybe in your recycling bin. This container was used to hold some cupcakes for Father's Day. That's why you can see there's still some chocolate in it. This plastic, which is nice and smooth and see-through on the top and on the bottom, can also be used to create Shrinky Dinks. Now, if you have clear plastic like this, colored pencil is not going to work on it. So what you would want instead is many different colors of Sharpie. Or you can also have a parent help you to use sandpaper to rough your plastic up. Now, before I show you how to make a Shrinky Dink, it's important that plastic like this is cleaned and cut out first. So I'm going to pause my video right here. If you need to go grab some plastic, maybe off the kitchen table or maybe on the pantry or even in the recycling bin, go wash it up, and then anywhere that has only flat plastic, you want to cut that out, which might be a little bit tough with small scissors, so I'd recommend bigger scissors if you have them, okay? So pause here, and we'll meet back once we have our flat plastic cleaned and cut out. Alright, I went ahead, I cleaned out my plastic really well with some dish soap and some nice warm water, and I dried it, and then I cut my two pieces out. You can see they're kind of nice and shiny. The other thing that I did was also grab a white sheet of paper and a pencil in case I want to draw my ideas out first on a piece of paper, because we can't really erase Sharpie as easily. So I like to look at the two pieces, and if one has some maybe words or numbers on it, I'll pick out that piece first, and I'm going to cut off those words or numbers because I don't want those to be part of my design. And that's going to show me about how big my plastic is. Now, when you start out a Shrinky Dink, you always want to start bigger than you think, because Shrinky Dinks literally do shrink in size to about 1/3 of their original size. So I'm going to take this piece of plastic, I'm going to lay it down on my paper, and I'm going to trace around it just to get an idea of how big this piece is, because I can't draw any larger than it is. Alright, So there's my size that I have to work with. I know it's kind of light for you friends to see right now. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to Sharpie it up so that way you can see the area I'm working with. Now right away, after looking at this nice rectangle that I have, the first thing that popped into my mind was doing a nice kind of fluffy clouds and a rainbow kind of look on it. So I think that's what I'm going to go ahead and draw out. Now again, drawing it on your paper first will help you better plan for your plastic. Because once you get to your plastic, it's no more pencil. We're going to use only Sharpies. So, draw all my clouds. Now again, whatever you want to draw is up to you. Just trace around your plastic first so you get an idea of size, and then draw whatever you want inside of that area. Alright, so there's some nice fluffy clouds. Now I just need to draw out my arch for my rainbow. And I'm going to make it come, oh, well, if I want to add a keychain later, I might want to think about leaving a space for where my hole could go. So I can't actually bring my rainbow up quite that high. I might need to bring it a little bit lower in case I want to make it into a keychain. I'll draw out just a few more arches of color to go through my rainbow real quickly, just to get an idea for when I'm drawing it on my plastic. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. There's my 6 colors of the rainbow. I've got my fluffy clouds. I think I'm ready to lay my plastic on top of it now and trace it out using my Sharpies. Now, I gotta be careful because my plastic is gonna like to move all over the place. So if your plastic is moving a lot, you might want to find a little bit of tape and just tape down 2 corners of your plastic to help you while you trace your image onto your plastic. I'm going to go ahead right now. I'm going to fast forward through this part. I'm going to trace up my clouds and my rainbow, and I'm also going to color them in with my Sharpies. Then I'm going to show you a second way to do it on my other piece of plastic using my colored pencils and some sandpaper, okay? Here goes. Here's my first rainbow Shrinky Dink that I made. I went ahead, I drew everything out with Sharpie, tracing it on top of that paper, and then I colored everything in that I wanted colored. Now as you can see, it's kind of see-through because of how clear it is in the Sharpies. Now before I cut this out, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to show you a different technique on my other piece of plastic that I have using sandpaper to make it rough kind of plastic and colored pencils instead, okay? Alright, I have a little bit of sandpaper here. I've got my colored pencils, and what you don't see off to the side of my desk is my garbage can, because this is going to create a little bit of plastic dust by sandpapering it, and we don't want to just blow that off everywhere. We want to tap, tap, tap it into the garbage. So on my plastic right now, I'm going to take just a little bit of kind of medium coarse sandpaper, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to scratch that plastic up. And I'm also going to turn it, and I'm going to scratch the other way, sideways, as well. So I'm turning it using my sandpaper. Alright, I'm going to hold it up a little bit so you can see how much it looks scratched. You can kind of see the scratches over here. It's still clear, because I didn't scratch over there. Now again, I'm going to gently just tap, tap, tap this into my garbage right now. That way all that plastic that I don't want goes into the garbage and not all over my table. Now, go ahead and I'm going to do the same kind of technique as I did before. I'm going to tape my plastic down, only this time instead of using my Sharpies, I'm going to use my colored pencils, and we're going to be able to compare the two to see how they look different in the end. Here goes. Alright, I've tried my Shrinky Dinks now 2 different ways. One where I left my plastic very nice and smooth and shiny, and I used Sharpies. And a second one where I roughed up the plastic using some sandpaper and was able to use colored pencils on top of it. Now, right now they look very, very similar. We're not going to maybe be able to notice a difference until after we're done baking them and shrinking them. Now, one last step before I go and preheat my oven is going to be cutting these out and also deciding if I do want to put a hole punch somewhere to turn this into a keychain, earring, or necklace. I'm going to go ahead and do that real quickly, do my hole punches and cut everything out, and then I'm going to show you how to ask an adult for help and what they'll need to do for preheating our oven today. So I went ahead, I cut out my 2 Shrinky Dinks. I even added a little bit of a hole at the top to help in case I want to turn these into a keychain. And as you can see, I didn't cut away all the plastic around the edges, especially if you can look right here, you can see that there's still some plastic around the rainbow. What I found is if I try to cut exactly on the lines, a lot of times the plastic will break and your Shrinky Dink might end up kind of sharp. So leave a little bit of that extra clear kind of plastic around it and you won't have any problems. Now, what you're going to need to do next is ask a parent for some help because we need to turn on the oven and use safety right now to help shrink our Shrinky Dinks. So please find an adult and ask them to preheat the oven to 325 degrees. Now, it's going to take a little bit of time for the oven to heat up. So while the oven's heating up, here's what you are going to do. You are going to find a baking tray and also some parchment paper. Parchment paper is used when baking, and we can also use it for our Shrinky Dinks today. I like to use 2 pieces. One to go on the baking tray and under our Shrinky Dink pieces, and the second one I actually put right on top of the Shrinky Dink pieces because they have a tendency to like to curl in on themselves, and by having just a little bit of extra weight on top, when they shrink, they'll shrink nice and flat. Besides setting that up for the oven, the other thing that you need to do is clean up all of your art supplies. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get all my art supplies cleaned up. My oven right now is already starting to preheat. Again, you want to get 325 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we're going to talk about putting our Shrinky Dinks in the oven for their cook time of 3 to 5 minutes. So please take the time right now to ask an adult for help with preheating your oven. Get your Shrinky Dinks set up on your baking tray and clean up your art supplies. I'll meet you in my kitchen in a moment to find out how to bake our Shrinky Dinks. Alright artists, here I am in my kitchen. I have my oven right over here. I just heard it go beep beep beep, and that tells me that it is preheated and ready for me to put my Shrinky Dinks, which are right behind me, into the oven for 3 to 5 minutes. Now, depending on what plastic you have at home, this time might be different, but I always recommend putting them in for at least 3 minutes and then checking them by taking them out and putting them back in if needed. So, as a quick little test to show you what's going to happen, I'm actually going to take one of my Shrinky Dinks out. So, that way we'll be able to compare the size when the one is done baking. So, I have my one rainbow in there. Again, I have another small sheet right on top. I'm going to go ahead and safely slide this into my oven right now and start our 3-minute timer. I'm going to speed this part up for you friends though. Here we go. Alright, I just pulled the first Shrinky Dink out of my oven and I'm a little disappointed. I've never actually tried this before with just regular household plastic, and the result that I have is kind of different than what I was expecting. My rainbow curled up on itself. So, there's no real way to flatten it out. And this one, I tried putting color side up. So, I'm glad that I saved my second one to try differently. I'm going to try putting this one, instead of color side up, I'm going to try putting it color side down to see if maybe that might help it not curl up. So, as always, art is kind of like science. We experiment until we get it right. So, I'm going to give it one more good try. If this doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. Alright, so I just pulled out my other Shrinky Dink, and it is a lot flatter compared to my first one. But I wanted to show some other comparisons as well, such as color and texture and also thickness of the plastic. So what I noticed was that this plastic, because I sandpapered it, didn't shrink as much as this plastic did. And the colors from the Sharpies, I think, look better personally to me than the color pencil did. So, after trying this out with regular household plastic, here's what I suggest for you artists. I would suggest using the Sharpies if you have them, And for sure, when you go to bake them on the bake tray, lay them color side down. That means the side that you colored on goes flat down. Put the paper on top, and I even added a couple of just regular kitchen knives like you would use for dinner. I laid those on top as well to help keep it flat while it was cooking and baking in the oven. So, is this as good as real Shrinky Dink plastic? No, but it's a great alternative that you can do at home with regular household plastic. So if you want to give it a try, have some fun with it, my friends. I hope you create something awesome with your Shrinky Dinks. Bye for now.